5:30 में कॉल करना है, 5:30 में कॉल करना है, टाइम देना है उसके बाद से।
स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं अपन।
हाँ हमारे प्रेसिडेंट को आने दो।
एक रियल एस्टेट का था, गूगल सर ने शेयर किया था, बिल्डर एसोसिएशन का, लिंक भेजो, करना ज्वाइन।
गुप्ता साहब, आनंद गुप्ता साहब, व्हाट हैपेंड?
अभी तो कुछ ऐसा चल नहीं रहा है, स्टार्ट ही सेटअप कर रहे हैं।
निवेश का फोन बिजी आ रहा है, प्रेसिडेंट का फोन बिजी आ रहा है।
मैं एक मिनट में करता हूँ। लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, जस्ट गिव मी 2 मिनट्स।
भाई करंट ट्रेंड्स और ये सब बिल्डर्स लोग हैं।
गुप्ता साहब, वो तो आपके होटल में होंगे ना?
तो होटल में ही
देखो, रूम मार के देखो ना।
एक मिनट।
ठीक है, पार्टिसिपेट आर ज्वाइनिंग, एक 2-3 मिनट्स करते हैं। स्वप्निल, योर
ट्रांसपोर्ट की बंदी थी, उसने उसका कुछ चल तो रहा है कि इसने
एडमिट करते हैं।
हाँ। साहब, उनका फोन नहीं लग रहा है। आनंद गुप्ता साहब, आनंद गुप्ता साहब,
मधु आपका नंबर लगाओ।
मैं लगा रहा हूँ, फोन लग ही नहीं रहा। मैं व्हाट्सएप कॉल किया मैंने, अभी तो लगा तो कुछ नहीं कर रहा है। We'll begin. Ladies and gentlemen, I am muting everybody. Only the speakers who have been made co-hosts can unmute themselves. And during or after the presentation, if anybody wants to raise any queries, they can raise their hands using the facility there. By the way, I am Mr. Madhusudan, S. Madhusudan, Head Communications BI. So I am muting everybody as of now. We'll begin the proceedings with a small prayer.
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ओम
Gupta sir, you can unmute yourself and we can hear you.
Good evening, friends. I hope all you can hear me. Madhu, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can.
yes.
Yeah. Good evening, friends. On behalf of Builders Association of India and our Housing and RERA Committee of Builders Association of India, I welcome you all to this August webinar. And I'm sure this webinar is going to bring some good, valuable information to you and so many solutions to your affordable housing section. Friends, this Builders Association of India is a body of all the infra and real estate developer having more than 20,000 business houses as our member, spread over 200 centers in the country. We are having a presence in every state and the union territory of this country. Apart from these 20,000 business houses, we are also having a 1 lakh business houses as our associate member in the form of cement distributor, steel distributor, and various connected construction industry material supporter. So you will find that this industry, the Builders of India, covers a very vast part of the industry. Just to name few, a stalwart like Larsen and Toubro, Hindustan Construction Company, Gammon India, Simplex, and in real estate, even Niranjan Hinanandani group of company and similar are our members. I'm very happy that today you have joined us from a various part of the country and going to be part to this webinar. I especially welcome our chief guest of today's function, our own president, Mr. Nimesh Patel, who is come from Ahmedabad, and presently he's leading this Builders of India. I also welcome today's keynote speaker, Mr. Jay Shah, who is going to enlighten us for this very valuable information. I also welcome our renowned chartered accountant, Mr. Mahadev Birla, who is going to also speak to us and going to give a valuable information about this matter. With this, friends, I welcome you all and ask Mr. Madhusudan to take the proceeding further. Mr. Madhusudan.
Sir, you are muted. Madhusudan ji, you are muted.
Thank you, sir. I think our president has not joined. Mr.
You can go further.
Mr. Bhavesh Shah, I think you can do this thing of introducing the speaker. You can unmute yourself, and I'm making you the co-host also.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I would like to introduce our keynote speakers, Mr. Jayesh Vaisha. He is a CEO of Swatantra Micro Housing Finance Corporation Limited. He has over 22 years of experience in HDFC. He has also worked in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and had very good experience in this field. And we have also our keynote speaker, Mr. Mahadev Birla. By profession, he is a chartered accountant. In 2008, he has completed. He has 13 years of experience for this field, and he had also written a book for RERA. So welcome, gentlemen. And I would like to invite Madhusudan for the further procedures.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jayesh sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Madhusudan. Thank you, Mr. Anand, and thank you, Bhavesh Bhai, for the introduction. It's quite exciting to be talking to so many builders across the country on something which is so close to my heart, and that's affordable housing. Before I start and get into the affordable housing, there's just one request. Mr. Anand mentioned that the Builder Association in India has more than 20,000 members, which has companies involved in construction, infrastructure, housing. There are building materials, agencies and companies as members. But I didn't hear a single finance company's name in that. I think probably you could involve and get some of the finance companies like us as members of the Builder Association. You are all partners, and I think we all together make the housing and the real estate industry possible. So that's a request. I mean, if you can kindly take it, we'll be keen to join in as members. So coming back to the affordable housing thing, whenever we talk about affordable housing, the first question comes is, what is affordable housing? How do you define affordable housing? Some people say, houses less than 50 lakhs is affordable. Some say, no, 50 lakhs is too way. 30 lakhs is a better figure. So 30 lakhs is a better number. And so any houses costing less than 30 lakhs is affordable. So I'm not going to get into the debate. I don't know what the answer is, whether it's 50 or 30 or 25 or wherever it is. What I'm going to be focusing and talking about is housing for the poor. And when we say poor, housing for the economically weaker section and the low income groups, the EWS and the LIG housing. So without getting into the cost really, because cost has various variables and various things, it's a function of a lot of factors. So I'm not going to get into that debate in terms of is a house worth 25 lakhs affordable or is a house worth 30 lakhs affordable. But people earning, say, less than 25,000 a month, or people earning less than 50,000 a month, is there a demand for housing for this segment? If there is a demand, is it properly addressed? If it's not properly addressed, what are the opportunities and challenges there? That's going to be the focus of my discussion. I'll keep my presentation brief and make it more interactive. I'll welcome questions from your end, and we can then make it more interactive. So as I said, I'm going to restrict it to the segment that I'm talking about, which is families earning less than 50,000 rupee income. When I say families earning 15,000 rupee income, if you look at the entire shortfall of housing that we talk about, I mean, every statistics, every report on housing in India talks about the housing shortage. The 28.7 million figure, which I've been hearing since I started my career in '87, hasn't changed much. It has only gone up. I only hear that number going to 30 million, in the last report that I saw. So over the last 35 years, this shortage of housing has never come down. At the same time, when you drive around the city, any city, whether it's Pune or Ahmedabad or Jaipur or Bombay or Bangalore, there are so many houses that are lying vacant, and the maximum advertisements that we see or the hoardings that we see are about real estate companies, right? So it's an irony that on one hand, you have the maximum ad space consumed by real estate projects. So if you analyze this problem a little further, the shortage and the oversupply are in two very different segments. And the segment that we're now talking about is where the shortage is, the low income families. And people can talk about a lot of problems and difficulties and challenges in that segment. But before we get into that, we need to honestly see, are there opportunities that even is it worth talking about it, or it's just something that we can't do about it. It's the government's problem and let them probably solve it. So what are the opportunities really? The first and the biggest opportunity is there's a shortage. And that shortage is not a small number. That shortage is of 30 million houses. And that's some shortage which is not, if all of us are put our efforts together, it's not something that will be sort of addressed in the next 5 years. So there's a huge opportunity there. All these people need good housing. With the kind of urbanization that is happening, the shortage is only going to increase. And this 28-30 million houses shortage, I'm talking only in urban cities. I'm not talking about the rural countries, because there it's a different level. There organized real estate is a far step away. We're not talking about self-construction houses. We're not talking about rural houses. We're talking about urban and semi-urban houses. And with the urbanization happening, this number is only going to go up. So there's a huge demand, and that demand is real. Second opportunity is the government is very, very keen and is looking positively to solve this problem. So far, we've heard and we've seen a lot of policies come in. We've seen, Rajiv Gandhi Awas Yojana come in. We've seen Aishub come in. We've seen Valmiki Awas Yojana come in. Various central and state government. Various state government schemes come in, but the efforts were all major. And for us, the community here, really, it didn't impact us at all. Neither did it impact the way we did our businesses, or nor did it impact in any way an opportunity to look at a new business opportunity. And therefore, it was always silent. But today, there are various government schemes, and especially under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where there exists an opportunity for private developers to get into affordable housing. A lot of you might be surprised. I can't see your videos, but I'm sure there'll be quite a few eyebrows raised in terms of, opportunity for private developers in affordable housing under the Prime Minister Awas Yojana. How is that and where is it? So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has actually 4 verticals. The first one is slum upgradation vertical, where of course there's an opportunity, but there's a limited scope to that. So we're not going to talk about that. The second vertical, which is the most popular and most talked about vertical, was the CLSS vertical, which is Credit Linked Subsidy Scheme, right? Which is no more operational. The last date was 31st March 22, and which is over now. But that was the most popular vehicle, the vertical of the PMAY, and which I'm sure all of you know about. But the other 2 verticals, where there is already an extension given to the Pradhan Mantri Awas under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, are affordable housing in partnership and the beneficiary-led construction. Now, beneficiary-led construction, again, there's not much that all of us can do except for the building material suppliers and a few other small-time contractors where they can probably contribute. But for organized real estate, the third vertical, the affordable housing in partnership, is a big opportunity. Every single state government has a certain number of houses that they need to construct. There are different models under which private partnerships are invited. Each state has come out with an affordable housing policy, which very clearly mentions the different private-public partnership models. Some of the models I'll tell you briefly are where, on a government land, private developers are invited to construct, and against that construction, they are given a piece of land along with an extra FSI for, free development. There are models where private developers can bring in their land, they get the land converted free of cost, get all the external development cost and all that incurred free of cost, construct affordable housing in part of that land, and use with the extra FSI and TDRs available on the rest of the land. There are different models in terms of kind of houses that are possible and all that. But if you really deep dive into these policies or these projects can be commercially viable. And that's where I come to the next opportunity is if you look at the real estate, the affordable real estate really, and you go down into the microeconomics of each project, the working capital required for affordable housing project is very limited compared to, your regular housing, higher end projects. Your marketing costs, your other costs are virtually negligible because there's already a huge demand, and with the government support, there are mechanisms to sell them at very less cost. There's a very quick turnaround for the project. The project can very well be turned around within 18 months to 24 months. And therefore, your return can be much, on a limited capital invested, your returns can be much, much higher compared to your normal other housing projects. People are a little scared about, we need to deal with a lot of people, these people are not educated enough, they don't know that. The other good thing is that's not the case anymore. The EWS LIG customers today are far better financially educated and are far more aware about the nuances of buying a house and all that than it was maybe 5 years back. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for all of us. One need to, in whatever areas of your operations, maybe it might be worth having a look at the opportunities available and looking at it. Even without government support, if you look at a standalone private project, it still might be financially viable. Having said that, let's also look at the challenges before we get super excited about it. According to me, the first biggest challenge in the affordable space is availability of finance. A lot of you not even thought about it is because even if we construct and there's a demand, who's there to finance the EWS LIG family? And unfortunately, what happens is it's a very unique situation that these families are in. Typically, an EWS family borrows from microfinance companies. Microfinance companies give out small loans up to 1 lakh at ridiculous interest rates like 21%, 24%, 30% sometimes. And these 1 lakh rupee loans are not sufficient enough to buy a house. They're too small for a housing loan. The housing finance companies on the other hand, or the banks in the other hand, who give housing loans, formal housing loans, for them, anything less than 5 lakhs doesn't make sense because it's too small. The cost of acquisition, the cost of processing and administering those small loans is too high for them. And for the kind of growths and the budgets that they're looking at, it doesn't make sense for them to do 5 lakh loans. Their sales executives are not excited because it doesn't, they need to put in the same amount of effort to do a 50 lakh loan. Why would a sales executive do a 5 lakh loan and earn a lesser commission compared to when he does a 50 lakh loan? So the sales executive is not interested. So the housing finance companies and banks are not interested. Cannot possibly go up because they have a cap on 1 lakh. And even if they decide to go up, it becomes too expensive to borrow a housing loan at the microfinance rates. And microfinance loans are typically 1 year, 2 year loans, whereas housing finance needs a much longer tenure. So there's this gap. Micro Housing Finance, which is a company that we started in 2009, precisely focuses on this particular gap. And after 13 years, I'm happy to say that there are now a lot of housing finance companies who are actually looking at financing these 2 to 5 lakh rupee loans. And the housing finance, though not as accessible as in the higher segment, but is much more accessible now than it was maybe 5 years back, or maybe even 3 years back, or maybe even last year. I can tell you that there must be at least 10 housing finance companies and banks who are now looking at this space. So availability of long-term housing finance in this particular segment is now possible. And when we talk about housing loans for EWS and LIGs, we are not talking about 1 lakh and 2 lakh rupee loans. We are not talking about the absolute bottom of the pyramid customer. We are talking about slightly above customers where their incomes are 25,000-30,000 rupees. They are today staying in rental accommodations in Kachi Bastis or, in chawls or in very poor living conditions, but they are still paying a rent of about 5,000 to 10,000, anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000. So these are customers who are anyway spending a significant amount of their incomes towards rentals, but living in very poor conditions. Now, if we can only upgrade them with a slightly more 20-30% increase in their outflow towards housing, they'll probably get a much better house. So there is definitely an opportunity. The challenge is to structure the whole costing and the design of the product, tie up with housing finance companies and banks so that you're sure that when you have customers, they also have source of financing. The other challenge really is, which is also, I think, very easy to address, lack of professional developers in this space. If you look at the general affordable housing and the private-public partnership builders, majority of them, I'm not sort of generalizing 100%, but a majority of them are very small-time developers, contractors, professionalism to sort of manage a project or professionalism to ensure that the financial discipline is there to be able to convert that opportunity into a profitable, venture or a very profitable project. So that professionalism is, if that is brought in, like we see the way the professionalism has changed the way bigger real estate projects have been managed over the last 25-30 years. The similar professional or similar transformation, if is brought into the affordable space, I think a lot of projects which seem commercially unviable, managing the finer details can become profitable. Because, I mean, the two main things required for financial viability, one is the demand, second is the cash flow, and third is the capital invested. All three are in favor if you talk about an affordable housing, microeconomics. Lastly, I think that's when I think Mahadev would probably have to come in, is they need to be regulated. The biggest supplier of affordable housing today in the country is the government, whether it's housing board, whether it's development authorities, whether it's municipal corporations or whoever. They are the biggest supplier of affordable housing, and they're not regulated under RERA. So a government project could probably get completed with poor quality of material, with any kind of no deadlines on their deliveries, no deadlines or specifications on their kind of development that they've done or the basic infrastructure that they provide. And these customers, have fully paid. I mean, they under the agreement have fully paid the amount, but have not got the product that they were promised to. So I think if government agencies are also brought under the coverage of RERA, I think it'll be a very fair.
Sir, I would like to interrupt you. I would like to share that the government agency are also falls under the definition of the promoter, and they are also required to register. So the states
have done it.
So in Gujarat, if you see the this Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, ODA, like this, if they are developing any houses, they are registered with the RERA, right, and their grievances are also sorted out by the RERA authority. So right, in case other states are not following that, we can make a representation that such type of authority should be registered and their grievances should be sorted out by the RERA.
Very much required. Because I think, when we talk about affordable housing and we talk about challenges, Gujarat is an exception. I think it's one of the states where we see the finest executed projects, I mean, in affordable housing, and which actually gives a fair playing field for, private developers. Gujarat is also a market where private developers have got into affordable housing without any government support and have, seen it as good business opportunity.
Yes, definitely. There are various developers who are into the affordable housing sector, and they are basically for the EWS and LIG people only. It is not like that the affordable housing size is and price is more than 50 lakhs. They are selling the products with around rupees 20 lakhs, I think, maximum. So there are various developers and they are doing good in Gujarat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Madhav.
Continue,
and
sir.
the last thing I say is, one of the biggest challenge that a developer has is access to capital, access to finance, right? Now, not many banks would probably be comfortable looking at financing or doing a construction finance loan to an affordable project. But I think there has to be a communication that needs to start. There are not too many proposals. The people have not understood the microeconomics of an affordable project properly. And I'm saying, when I say people, I include the bankers as well. So if developers can actually sit down, prepare a detailed project report or a viability report for a affordable housing project, I'm sure bankers would also be open for them. What they'll need to look at is if there is ensured, if there's sellability, if there is good return on their capital, and if there is enough cash flows to support that, they should not have a problem in terms of financing it. So I think that's where a dialogue needs to start. I think the confidence will build as we do, as the numbers go up, as we have more projects coming in. But the initial, it's not a treaded path. We'll have to create our own path. And I think the time is ripe. I think everything is there. It's not something which is completely unknown. Housing finance has been tested over the last at least 10, 12 years in this space. Housing finance is available to the last mile family. Government support is there. I think bankers will also come along and join the journey. I think the ball is in the developers' court to probably take that initiative and look at affordable housing as a viable commercial project. Thank you.
I would like to add one part in this, sir. What you said, that the major issue in the affordable housing sector and the financing things, the literacy of the customer, because the customer are not aware that how they will get the loan or financing. That's why, as far as my experience is concerned, that's why the developers also get hesitate. Because once they develop the project and the customer is not aware about the financing, then obviously the developers also hesitate to go with that.
But that's what I said, Bhadev, it's changing. It's changing quite fast. I mean, I remember 2009, we had to go to the developer, tell him to construct. We had to go to, taxi drivers associations. We had to go to NGOs, tell them, boss, there's an opportunity for you to buy a house. They didn't have bank accounts. We had to open bank accounts for them. We had to explain what their, loan amount DMIs are. So, but now today, things have changed. I mean, people now are quite aware. Majority of our customers have, not majority, every single customer has a bank account because of the Jan Dhan schemes and all that. Financial literacy has been taken to the next level. The way they digitize digital payments and all that are happening. Even a Bajiwala, we today for us to assess their income is so easy because we have his Paytm records or we have his PhonePe record. For an Uber driver, we have his details from his Uber record. So it's so much easier than what it was even when we started in 2009. We have a long way to go, but I'm saying even if you look at 10% of the market to start with, that's a big market. And when we hit 10% of the market, we probably have more customers for the 20% market share who would be ready to get into the finance this thing, or maybe to be able to buy a house.
So another issue is also there in regards to that whether this housing finance companies are getting the long-term debt, because they must be having a short-term debt and they are giving the loans to the customers. So that is the big challenge because of that high rate of interest are there in housing finance company. So
good question, Madhav. I think that interest rate is actually an override thing. Whenever we go to government and talk to government, he said, sir, we'll give loans, we'll provide loans to your EWS allottees. He said, okay, aap kitna kya rate pe loan denge? He said, we'll give it to them at 12%. What? 12%? No way. You charge so high interest rates, 7% bhi dena chahiye. Now, there's a good argument. Yeah, 7% bhi dena chahiye. Bhai, agar Madhav Birla ji ko 7% mein loan milta hai, to why should another person get it at 12%, right? But Mahadeo Birla has an option to walk into 1, 2, 3, 4 banks. The banks looks at Mahadeo Birla's credit and decides the pricing for the loan. What option does a rickshawala have today? Fair enough. You don't take a loan at 12% because you think it's too high. But the next better option is an 18% or a 20% loan. And he's not going to get that loan for over a 15 or a 20 or for a 20-year term. He probably might get that loan for 3 years or 5 years. Now, as a result, this housing shortage that we're talking about has never reduced because people think, oh no, 12% is high. I'll not take a 12% loan. I'll postpone my decision. Postponing a decision in housing has never helped. It's only going to increase its cost. That affordability will is not that 5 years later will be probably more eligible for a loan, or his loan is interest is going to come down to 7% if he takes that loan 3 years later. And secondly, the interest on the loan, the interest, the fear is, oh, मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा interest pay करना पड़ेगा. The interest rate is only a small factor of the interest that we pay. The bigger factor is the tenor of the loan. And housing loans today are so flexible that any payment, even a 5,000 rupee payment you want to make towards prepayment, goes and gets adjusted to a principal amount. Your tenor comes down, your interest rates come down. So you start off with an affordable installment on a 20-year loan, and as your income goes up or as you get some more money, keep paying back. And that amount which gets adjusted to your principal brings down your interest far, far more than that interest rate that we see on your loan agreement.
So one another point of discussion is that.
Just to give you an example, sorry to the CLSS scheme, which was so popular, and today, without getting into the debate of whether it was successful, not successful, and all that, I can vouch that millions of people in the EWS and LIG segment have been able to own a house because of that scheme. They would have otherwise not been able to do that at all. So it definitely, to that extent, was very impactful. And the second thing is that principle, that CLSS subsidy that was given by the government was actually very unique because they discounted the entire subsidy for 20 years and gave it upfront. And that amount was used to pay back as a prepayment in the loan that they had taken. So today, if suppose there was a customer was taken a 6 lakh rupee loan, and there's a CLSS subsidy of 250 or 260 that comes in and gets adjusted as a prepayment, the tenor of 20 years crashes to 6.5 years. And if you multiply, the EMI by the 6.5-year tenor, the total amount, including interest that the customer pays, is less than 6 lakhs.
So the question is that such type of things, actually it is to be, like as earlier you said in the beginning of the meeting that we are at the forum where Builder Association of India is there. If the finance companies also comes to the board of that and becomes a member, then with the Builder Association of India, we can educate to the customers. And apart from that, the government is also, supporting the real estate developers at every stage, and they have allocated some fund also. I think in the last budget also, government has allocated some funds. So why can't we make such efforts that we can make some representation where the housing finance companies get the fund at the lower rate, and that same can be distributed to the individual customers, and that sector can be increased, because there is a lot of space in Maharashtra as well as Gujarat, and if we see the other states. So how we can, I am talking about the solution, because we are seeing the challenges in terms of the finance. So this is my personal view, that how can we sort it out by this way, which is the challenge for the individual customer.
Yeah, sure. We can definitely make an effort. Whether the effort works, how much does it work? It's for us to, just keep at it, and someday it will work. Some extent, there has to be a beginning to, to then decide whether, it is working or not working.
Yeah.
So you're right. We have to do it jointly. The financiers, the developers, the government agencies, the beneficiaries are all waiting.
Yes, because ultimately the real estate developers who are having the lands, but ultimately the question comes in terms of the finance, which we topic today are discussing. So how the real estate developers gets the fund, and how the customer get benefits from that fund in terms of individual loans. that we have to, sir, we have to see this as a solution.
I can assure you one thing to this forum. If there's some affordable housing project coming up for the EWS families, making housing loans available to the beneficiaries is not a problem anymore. You can write to me, you can call me up. I'll ensure that, housing finance is available and people will have a choice. It's not that you tie up with one company and, EC ka loan milega. No. Just like we would want to, if we were to go to and decide to take a loan and we have a choice, we'll ensure that the customer also has a choice.
Yes, definitely, sir. So, do we have any questions?
There's
Yes,
a guarantee fund which someone mentioned on the chat, but that guarantee fund it doesn't work so simply. I mean, we've been talking to the National Housing Bank and the government on this guarantee fund. The guarantee fund has two sides to it. Firstly, it's a credit guarantee fund. Now, firstly, when you say you are a credit guarantee fund, that means you are starting off with the assumption that the fellow is going to default, and therefore you need a credit guarantee. Whereas I can tell you with our 12 or 13 years of experience in this space, the defaults on loans less than 5 lakhs is less than 1%. And which is what the best of housing finance companies, including HDFCs and the LICs of India and the PNB Housing and all of them, is comparable to them. So the credit worthiness of these customers is no different. I would say is better than the formal customers. So credit guarantee for these customers is really adding an extra cost for no reason. Because credit guarantee or any of these guarantee funds don't come for free. And they also guarantee, they don't guarantee full amount, they only guarantee 20%. Now, if the customer knows that my loan ka inhone already guarantee le rakha hai. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. And as far as low funds being available to housing finance companies for onward lending, there are schemes. In fact, a lot of these schemes are underutilized. I mean, there are, we are in discussion with banks, with multilateral agencies, with the National Housing Bank. So we are doing that because that's our business. We need to raise money to lend to the EWS LIG customers, and we are trying to always try to see how we can reduce our cost of funds. But
I think, sir, you have a history also.
Funds is no more there.
Sir, but I think you have a history also in your own companies that since last 5 or 10 years, there was no NPA even to the customer who were not having any income and income proof.
Yeah, first 7 years we had no NPAs. First 7 years of our operation, we had no NPAs. We had zero NPAs.
Yeah. So now Swapnil ji has raised the hand and Pankaj ji Kothari has raised the hand. So Swapnil ji, please ask your question.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I completely agree with the speaker that the CLSS, the class, has given the best of the opportunities for the LIG and MIG customers. The subsidy has helped millions of customers. I just have a couple of questions regarding that. Why the class has been discontinued, and do you know any correct data that how many people the class has actually benefited? Thank you very much.
So on the second question first, the number of customers, I'm sure it will be available somewhere on the ministry website or on the NHB website. I don't have the data offhand because it keeps accumulating. There are still a lot of customers who are still in the queue. The first question you said that why was it discontinued? At the risk of being quoted and this thing, I think the scheme was misused to a certain extent. The scheme was ideally meant for EWS customers with incomes less than 30,000 rupees a month, and then it was extended to incomes less than 50,000 rupees a month, which was fair because these are the customers who do not get benefits under income tax for the principal repayments, who do not get benefits for the interest repayment under the income tax benefit because they don't fall under that. Right, and therefore this is where the cost of fund is higher because banks and everyone think they are high risk customers and therefore they would add a risk premium to their interest rates, and therefore the normal availability of finance, even if they got one, was at higher rates. So the interest subvention scheme for this segment made a lot of sense and it was working beautifully. Somewhere along the line, for some, I don't know, certain pressures from certain lobbies, that scheme was extended to people earning 9 lakh rupees a year, 12 lakh rupees a year, 18 lakh rupees a year. Now, a person earning 1,50,000 rupees a month, the value of the 2.5 lakh rupee subsidy, compare it with a person earning, 50,000 rupees, or taking a 6 lakh rupee and that 2,50,000, 2,50,000 subsidy. So that entire, and if you look at the disbursement under the scheme, the majority of the disbursement then happened in the MIG-1 and MIG-2. And even today, the MIG-1, MIG-2 scheme stopped in 2021, where all the applications under that scheme were cleared. Today, there still is a long list of customers in the EWS and LIG segment, which is loans up, incomes up to 50,000, where they're still in the queue waiting for the subsidy to be disbursed. So I think that entire allocation of the subsidy got a little mixed up, and then that's the reason why they probably had to stop and relook at the scheme.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Pankaj ji, you have a question, please.
हाँ सर नमस्कार, मैं पंकज कोठारी बोल रहा हूँ। सर ये जो सीजे क्रेडिट गारंटी स्कीम के बारे में हम बात कर रहे थे, पहले गवर्नमेंट ने 5 लाख रुपए तक निकाला था। 2014 में जब मोदी गवर्नमेंट आए थे तो उन्होंने वो लिमिट 8 लाख रुपए तक किया। सर 10 लाख रुपए तक के जो होम लोन लेते हैं उनके लिए स्कीम काफी अच्छी है, बट कोई भी बैंक ने, सारे बैंकों ने प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के एमओयू में साइन किया है। प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के एमओयू में क्लियर कट दिया है सेल्फ सर्टिफिकेशन इनकम प्रूफ, ये ईडब्ल्यूसी कैटेगरी में को अलाउ किया था उन्होंने, और उसी को सबने एमओयू साइन किया। और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने एनएचबी को अलाउ किया फॉर द क्रेडिट गारंटी स्कीम। ये अप टू 8 लाख रुपीस तक वो अलाउड है, एंड 75% ऑफ द एनपी अगर वो होता है तो गवर्नमेंट उसको इमीडिएटली रियम्बर्स करती है, लाइक एमएसएमई में जैसा किया उन्होंने। तो ये 8 लाख तक के जो स्कीम है, ये सभी बैंकों ने एमओयू साइन किया है। मैंने शायद अभी ग्रुप हमारे बीआईआई के ग्रुप पे डाला भी प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ एनएचबी और सारा कंटेंट। मेरा रिक्वेस्ट ये था कि हमने बीआईआई की तरफ से भी और अदर फोरम में भी हमने अप टू 8 लाख का जो लिमिट है वो 15 लाख करा जाए, नंबर 1, क्योंकि 2014 में जो कॉस्ट महंगाई थी, इकोनॉमिक्स था, वो आज इन्फ्लेशन होके अप टू 15 लाख हो चुका है वो। सेकेंडली, अगर हमने इसको गवर्नमेंट को फोर्स किया कि सब बैंक को कंपलसरी करे, क्योंकि उसमें 75% ऑफ द लोन इज इमीडिएटली रीइंबर्स्ड टू द, अगर डिफॉल्ट होता है तो इसमें कोई अड़चन नहीं है मेरे ख्याल से, और बहुत बड़ा बिजनेस सेक्टर मिल जाएगा बैंकों को इससे।
नहीं सर, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो इमीडिएटली रीइंबर्स होगा। और आप जो एमओयू की बात कर रहे हैं, वो एमओयू जो है वो पीएमएफवाई के लिए और सीएलएसएस के लिए एंटर हुआ था, जो बैंक्स ने सारे एनएचबी के साथ और हडकोर के साथ किया था। क्रेडिट गारंटी के लिए आपको एक अलग से एमओयू करना पड़ता है, दैट इज नॉट कवर्ड अंडर द पीएमएफवाई। और पीएमए जो क्रेडिट गारंटी के अंडर जो क्रेडिट गारंटी देती है उसका कॉस्ट होता है, इट्स नॉट फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट, राइट। बट कमिंग दैट ऑल दिस अपार्ट, सर क्रेडिट गारंटी का मतलब ये हुआ कि भाई आप किसी को भी लोन दे दो, मैंने गारंटी किया, डिफॉल्ट होगा तो हम पेमेंट कर देंगे। देन यू आर अंडरमाइनिंग द होल क्रेडिट कल्चर, द होल क्रेडिट, the entire finance industry. The finance industry or the banks cannot work on guarantees. They have to work on the credit of the person whom they are lending to, right? But having said that, also there is no need for a credit guarantee in this customer profile, because if just take this. I'll just call you back in 5 minutes. I'll just call you back in 5 minutes. Sorry. So these customers' credit is so good, we don't need a guarantee. Why would we want a government to guarantee a loan that we are 5 lakh rupee loan that we are doing to a rickshawala who has been for the last 15 years trying desperately to save and build a house for himself? He doesn't need a guarantee. He is credit worthy enough. He is capable enough to repay his loan on his own. So that concept of a credit guarantee actually doesn't work. And if you expect the banks to dilute the credit norms to be able, just because there's a credit guarantee available, is also not good, because the credit guarantee is not on 100% of the loan, number one. It's only on 20% of the loan. The credit guarantee only kicks in after you have gone through all the recourse of the loans, and after a certain number of months. It's not immediate. So there are a lot of conditions attached to that. So it's not as simple as like you made it say.
अगर अभी हमने खुद ने माडा के साथ प्रोजेक्ट किया जिसकी कॉस्ट है 11 लाख रुपीस, और ईडब्ल्यूएस वाला कहां से दे सकता है 11 लाख रुपीस? उसमें 2.5 लाख सब्सिडी है, उनको 6,000 भरना है। कोई भी ईडब्ल्यूएस वाला 1.5 लाख भरेगा, बचे हुआ उनको लोन का सपोर्ट इज मोस्ट एसेंशियल। अगर ये आप जैसे बोले आप 50 मिलियन हाउस जो अभी जो उनको होना, और गवर्नमेंट को ही कंस्ट्रक्शन करते हैं तो गवर्नमेंट गेट मोर देन 100% टैक्स देन बिल्डर। तो गवर्नमेंट कोई एहसान नहीं कर रही है। और अभी तक का जितना एनपीए का आप स्टैटिस्टिक्स देखो, ईडब्ल्यूएस एलआईजी की जो लोगों को लोन दिया है उनमें डिफॉल्ट रेशियो लेस देन 1 है। तो बड़े बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशन को आप, बड़े बड़े कॉर्पोरेट को हम फाइनेंस करते हैं, उनको गारंटी देते हैं और एनपीए करते हैं। और यहाँ पे मेन तबके को हाथ लगाना है, क्योंकि सर इनको, क्योंकि हेलो
आप बोलिए सर।
क्योंकि इन लोगों का जो ईएमआई आएगा, वो इनका ईएमआई जो आएगा 5-6 हजार रुपए के ऊपर नहीं आएगा। 8 लाख के लिए अगर लोन देते हैं तो 7,000 के ऊपर नहीं आएगा, उतना वो हाउसिंग रेंट देते ही है 5,000 तक के। तो आई थिंक हमने भी इसमें थोड़ा सपोर्ट की भूमिका निभाना, जो हमारे जो स्टाफ है, लोगों के जो स्टाफ है, उनके लिए बड़ा एक घर का सपना पूरा हो सकता है।
No, you're right, absolutely. Because sir, आपने जैसा कहा कि अब हाउसिंग फाइनेंस अवेलेबल है, और अब जो है इन कस्टमर्स को मकान खरीदने के लिए, बनाने के लिए लोन मिल जाएगा, उसमें कहीं कोई आपत्ति नहीं आएगी।
Excuse me, who is stopping the recording?
अलग होता है, तो हर एक बैंक की इंटरेस्ट रेट
मायादेव बिरला जी। हाँ जय सर बोलिए।
Yeah, so like you rightly said, sir, it requires an all-round effort from everyone, from the developers, from the financiers, from the government, and we need to find a solution to that. And the question on availability of finance, I think to a large extent it is solved today. Today, I think in the EWS segment also, majority of them who are eligible for a loan, who have a regular income, irrespective of whether they have documents for that income or not, are eligible for loans. As far as your concern, कि भी अगर 11 लाख का मकान EWS को भेज रहा है, तो definitely he cannot afford it. अगर उसमें से आप 2.5 लाख की सब्सिडी भी माइनस कर लोगे, तो भी आपका उनका जो मकान है 8.5 लाख का, वो 8.5 लाख का मकान is impossible for him to buy it on his buy it on his own, and therefore housing finance is required. But today housing finance is available. Now whether he'll still be able to buy a 8.5 lakh rupee house or not at a 25,000 or a 50,000 rupee income remains to be seen.
Definitely. सर उनको एफर्ट्स करना चाहिए, और बैंकिंग ने भी इसको प्रोएक्टिवली आना चाहिए। छोटे टिकट साइज है, इसलिए वो लोग हाथ लगाते नहीं है।
I think Pankaj ji, the Jayesh ji has already, I think he said that even the government banks are not, giving the loans, but there are companies, private finance companies or housing finance companies are there, they are giving the loans, and they are giving it at a better rate, looking towards their, documentation part and everything. So the funding
Raghav, sir, there is a 50, approximately 40% higher rate of interest to them. वहीं पे उसकी कमर टूटती है सर।
नहीं, मैं गलत है सर। फर्स्ट हम लोग बोलते हैं कोई लोन नहीं देता है, अगर लोन देता है बोलते हैं अरे नहीं लोन आप बहुत हाई इंटरेस्ट रेट पे लेते हो। भैया सी, we need to solve the problem in gradual stages. Firstly, we need to give them the loans. Once you give them the loans and they repay, then their credibility is established. If the credibility is established, their banks will be a little more open to give loans. And as I said, we at MHFC have gone through this journey over the last 10 years. The interest rates have come down. The number of companies who have now entered have increased. And we would love it if it's an open market. If someone gives the loan at 7% to these customers, like a rickshawala who doesn't have a documented income, I mean, what better for the ecosystem and for the entire, affordable housing system? But that will evolve. We can't wait for the next step of evolution without, taking the first step.
Yeah, I think any other members have any query?
Yeah, members. No,
Anand sir is there.
Anand Gupta sahib. Anand Gupta sahib, unmute yourself.
हाँ, क्या बोल रहे हैं?
Sir, any member have any query, and what is your thought, sir? If you can highlight some 2-3 points, and then we will, I think.
See, right now, probably whatever is the income group of the average person of this country, they may not, all the people may not think of only buying. Can we not have a housing for
Rental.
even for rental?
Yeah.
Because that is the point, everybody can afford it. So the loan is given to a person who builds it and repay, not like a project finance, but like as he customer pays, say 20 years, 25 years. So that by collecting the rent from the people. Because this is what is successful formula in the rest of the part of the world.
Absolutely right, sir. I mean, why only rental? There are hybrid models also possible. You can't afford, suppose, the EWS family, the house is 10 lakhs. You can't afford a 10 lakh rupee house. You can afford a 5 lakh rupee house. So buy a 5 lakh rupee house. I mean, 5 lakhs out of the 10 lakhs. So you own 50% and pay rent on the 50%. So you can be a shared rental come ownership model. And as your eligibility or as your affordability grows up, you can keep buying out the rest of the part. You can have a pure rental model. You can have investors who can probably, invest in a rental housing, get their returns on the rentals, and the capital appreciation always is sort of, kept for the future. The entire REIT that was, the concept of a REIT that was formed was to encourage rental housing. So definitely, there are a lot of legal challenges to that. There are a lot of, because the various laws related to real estate needs to be changed. Laws related to property transfer and all that need to be changed and modified. That's a long process, but we need to start somewhere to be able to, get somewhere, in the next 5 years or 10 years.
The second thing, I don't know how we solve this mystery. When the builder makes a flat, he's struggling to sell it. And when the CIDCO in New Mumbai, Mahada in Bombay, or any part of the Maharashtra, when they apply for, they invite a application for 8,000 flat, they get an application for 80,000 flat. So why don't we do like this? The let builder make it, but the selling part let it be in the government name.
Absolutely. So a lot of states PPP model exactly does that. So the registrations are invited by the government. The allotment is done by the government. So as far as the customer is concerned, it's a government flat. But the construction, the entire economics of the commercial part of the project is actually on the back end done by a private developer.
So do you feel that the interest rate for home there is all probability to going further down? Can it go down?
Go down further? I have my doubts. For affordable housing segment, there is still a possibility because I think, we need to establish the credit, history for them. It's still at an initial stage. A lot of our customers, see, most of the banks today link their interest rate to a credit risk or a credit score. And because these customers in the EWS LIG segment are not financially savvy, they take a credit card and default on it. Their incomes are not very, very formal. They don't get their income in bank accounts. And therefore, they're not defaulters, but there could be delays in some of the loans that they've repaid. As a result, their credit scores are low. And banks today look at credit score in absolute, isolation compared to the other factors. and therefore the interest rates are slightly higher. But as the entire credit evaluation model evolves around and they become a little more realistic for these affordable informal sector customers, I'm sure the interest rates probably will not be very different from the formal customers.
Sir, Prime Minister has said housing for all by 2024. Maybe 2024 or maybe 2030, whatever it is. But is it possible in a country like ours?
Sir, I'm not sure. I'm not anyone to say that. But I think I can tell you one thing for sure, sir. Whether housing for all is possible or not is I don't know. But I think this entire, the mission of housing for all has led to a huge, numbers of construction going up, home ownerships going up, and which itself I think is a huge impact. I mean, even banks, financial institutions today are looking at, housing loans in a much more aggressive manner than in the past.
Thank you, Shah, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Mahadev, he has gone out 1 minute. I'm taking you back inside. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, if you had questions, please raise your hands using the facility in the app. Even on the screen also, I'm not seeing anything. Yeah. Mr. Birla, I think, has joined us. Yeah, he's on mute. Sir, unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah. Sorry.
अब बाहर चले गए थे क्या?
Yeah, due to network issue.
अरे हाँ, ठीक है चले. Anyway, questions तो किसी का नहीं है.
So I think we can conclude this session, right? And Jay sir already rightly said that there is already a lot of financial facilities available there. Only some way we have to little bit more educate to the customers, and the developers have to make more efforts in terms of this real estate sector. And I think the issue is related to the who falls under the real estate, affordable real estate sector is also clear, because as far as if we talk about the affordable sector, actually there is 3 types of customer are there: EWS, LIG, and MIG. If we talk about the GST and income tax perspective, there is a limit of 60 square meter and 45 lakhs. But ultimately, they are not the affordable, that does not fall under the affordable sector. As far as if it talks about the finance terms, the affordable, customers or the real estate sector falls for that EWS, LIG, or MIG only. So this is from my side, and I think Jay sir has already talked about various aspects, and Jay sir is available, the company is available for, in terms of helping the real estate developers to get the finance. And Anand sir, we can, associate or we can make a members to the finance company also. So that would be more beneficial.
No, there's no bar on the financial companies joining as members. There's no bar as of now. शरद खराडे साहेब तुम्हाला काय विचारायचं आहे का? अनम्यूट करा स्वतःला. शरद खराडे साहेब, सांगली. If you can unmute yourself, we can ask some. It seems you are raising your hands on the screen. Anyway, I think Mr. Anujan Akwa, the floor is yours to propose the vote of thanks.
Sure, Madhusudan, just please allow me to remain off screen. Friends, it was a very wonderful session, and we have come to the end of the important and informative evening today. The evening would not have been informative but for the presentation of Shri Jayesh Shah, Director Operations and Credit, Messrs. Swatantra Micro Housing Finance Corporation Limited, which is an Aditya Birla Group company. Sir, I thank you for your highly informative presentation. Shri Nimesh Patel, President Builders Association of India, set to the tone of this evening with his.
No, he could not join.
He could not join today. So, anyways, thanks for his initiative along with Shri Anand Gupta. Sir, thanks for taking and scheduling this session. The presentation and concluding remarks by C.A. Mahadev Birla is also not there, real estate expert and author. Co-chairman Birla is there, Mr. Birla?
Yeah, he's there.
No, yeah. So for his concluding remarks, I thank him. And he's a co-chairman of BI's Housing and RERA committee, added value to the webinar. Sir, thanks for your presentation and also coordinating the organizing of this webinar. I thank all the participants registering and attending this webinar. I request them all to continue to support and encourage BI in such activities. We and many other senior functionaries of BI from across India today with us. I thank all the participating in the webinar and special thanks to Shri Anand Gupta, Chairman BI Housing and RERA committees in taking lead in the organizing this webinar. I also thank all other dignitaries and various representatives of BAI from Pan India. Last but not the least, a word of appreciation for the back office of BI and coordinating and organizing the webinar. Thank you so much, and have a nice evening. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madhusudan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nakwa, and thank you, Mr. Madhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Participants can unmute themselves. I think I'll end the meeting.
Yes.